We do begin with the escalation of violence in the Mideast, today being met with talk of a possible ceasefire. Israel expanded its air assault on Gaza as its Iron Dome defense system protected Tel Aviv, its most populous city, from a Hamas rocket attack. We have team coverage this morning. ABC's Christiane Amanpour is in Jerusalem, but we begin with ABC's Alex Marquardt in Gaza City. Alex.
Good morning, Bianna. Overnight, the Israeli Air Force targeted media buildings here in Gaza, while the Navy shelled targets along the coast not very far from here. The big question today is whether a ceasefire will be able to be brokered before Israel launches a ground invasion. Israeli jets pummeling Gaza overnight. 2 buildings housing Hamas and international media were targeted. 6 journalists were wounded. From the sea, volley after volley of naval artillery hit alleged terror sites. So far, more than 50 Palestinians have been killed and more than 500 wounded. We're exacting a heavy price from Hamas, said Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and the military is prepared for a significant expansion of its operations. For days, tanks and troops have been building up along the border ahead of a possible invasion. Far fewer rockets were fired from Gaza overnight. But this morning, sirens wailed in Tel Aviv as Hamas fired 2 rockets, both intercepted by the Iron Dome anti-missile system. 3 Israelis have been killed, around 50 wounded. Egypt and Turkey are working feverishly to try and stop the violence. The Israelis are rejecting the ceasefire, a Hamas spokesman told us. Israel will continue carrying out massacres against our people. There have been talks, but Israeli officials are staying tight-lipped.
For the moment, rockets are still being fired in Israel. We will go on with military operations. We're not excluding any option, including the diplomatic option.
Israeli analysts say the likelihood of a ground invasion is diminishing, that Israel's top leadership doesn't really want it, but the conditions of a ceasefire are very far from being resolved, meaning the possibility of a ground invasion is still very real. Bianna?
All right, Alex, thank you. Now let's go to Jerusalem, which has not been spared from rocket attacks in the past 48 hours. ABC's Global Affairs anchor Christiane Amanpour is there with the latest. Christiane, with talk of even a possible ground assault from Israel, how likely is a ceasefire at this point? Israel said that they're rejecting it, as we heard from Alex.
Well, not rejecting it. What we understand is that it is a tense waiting game. I just spoke to a senior Israeli official who says, look, this is a dual track operation as far as they're concerned. They are hoping that international diplomacy, the U.S. pressuring and working with its allies, Egypt and Turkey, to try to pressure Hamas, and Israel also in contact with Egyptian mediators. At the same time, Israel, as we can see, massing for a potential military operation if they decide to do one. It's been confirmed to me that Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke to President Obama on Friday, just before the president went off to Asia, and they are just hoping that this does resolve itself. But the conditions are still a little bit far apart. Israel wants to make sure that Hamas never fires another rocket into this state, and also that it cannot be rearmed via the western sort of side of Gaza. And Hamas wants to make sure there are no more targeted assassinations, and it wants to be able to have the siege of Gaza lifted. So conditions still quite far apart.
Delicate act of diplomacy. All right, Christiane, we appreciate your reporting live for us this morning. Thank you.